Mark White on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Tatiana Sanchez in the GB Newsroom. Large groups of migrants have clashed with French police near Dunkirk after the authorities stopped their attempts to cross the channel. Migrants have been seen attacking French police officers with stones and tree branches. Meanwhile, the force used pepper spray to push them back. GB News was told the vast majority of migrants were young men, with 1 or 2 women and children. Meanwhile, dozens of Albanian nationals have been protesting in central London today against the British government's immigration policies. Many are still furious about the Home Secretary's comments earlier this month when she likened the number of asylum seekers arriving in the UK to an invasion. Close to 40,000 migrants have crossed the English Channel in small boats so far this year. Well, Britain and France are expected to agree a deal as soon as Monday to ramp up their joint efforts to reduce those numbers. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russian forces destroyed Kherson's critical infrastructure before they fled the city yesterday. He says Kherson lacks running water, heat, electricity, medicines and food. Well, despite this, residents are still celebrating in the streets, and Zelensky says his troops have taken control of more than 60 settlements in the region. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is expected to confront Russia's top diplomat, Sergei Lavrov, by calling out the Russian president at the G20 summit on Sunday. Mr. Sunak is expected to call out Putin's regime over Russian invasion on Ukraine and the global economic effects. The summit takes place in Indonesia, Bali, and joins world leaders including US, France and China. Vladimir Putin confirmed he'll skip the event due to a schedule he says requires him to be in Russia. Tory MPs have come out in defence of the Deputy Prime Minister after he was accused of being rude and aggressive towards civil servants. Rishi Sunak is facing further questions over his judgment of appointing him as allegations against Raab emerge, including that he created a culture of fear in his previous role as Justice Secretary. Labour described the accusations as deeply troubling. And the Queen's dedicated service and duty were hailed at the annual Festival of Remembrance this evening. The King and other royal family members attended the service at the Royal Albert Hall. It's the first annual remembrance service at the venue since the Queen's death. The Prince and Princess of Wales and Earl and Countess of Wessex were also in attendance, with the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak also there as he observed the event from a box to the left of the royals. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's over to headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Stephen Allen and I'm joined by two comedians to review the papers, comedian and film star Scott Capurro and comedian and property expert Thea Carroll. So guess the housing markets must be pretty bad because look who's turning up looking for work. Ouch. Well, let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages. We start with the Sunday Telegraph. The Telegraph reads, 10-point migration plan to end Hotel Britain and nurses, unreasonable pay. Demand will rise inflation. Also, Hunt declares war on waste to head off revolt on taxes. The Observer has, they now reveal the $30 billion cost of disastrous trust budget and shock figure shows scale of UK class pay gap. The Mirror has now the Vicar slams Jungle MP. Hancock hasn't got a prayer. Lord Reverend blasts 400k TV stint in sermon. And the Sunday Times leads with Putin's retreat transforms Kherson into a city of joy. Also, Phone reveals new phone shame and energy bills sought for millions. And the Express, moving on to the Express, we can see that they have Rishi revives Thatcherism to rescue UK. PM follows the Iron Lady's recession playbook of tax hikes and spending cuts. And finally, the Star on Sunday, Tara Reader gives Coco the once-over. The Fool, judgment, time to reflect on your actions. The Fool, new adventure is of no value. 10 swordsmen feeling alone and hopeless. And those are your front pages. Well, there was a lot to cover there. Let's talk us through these front pages and the Sunday Telegraph. Scott, what's that look like?
Well, as you said, there's a 10-point migration plan to end, quote-unquote, Hotel Britain. Although why that's in quotes, who's calling Hotel Britain? Hotel Britain, I have no idea. It might just be the Telegraph. Apparently, the 10-point plan has been designed mostly with France to protect the borders of both France and the UK. There'll be a new agreement where there are patrols that are increased on northern French beaches. There'll be doubling the number of migrants prevented from leaving France shores. And for the first time, British officials will be stationed in joint control centers in France to share live intelligence. It'll cost $60 million plus as of Monday to organize all this. And the fear, as we keep hearing again and again and again, is to defend ourselves from, all those Albanians, they're just desperate for Twix. And I don't know, they can't get KFC in Albania. The fact is, these numbers have been inflated by the Home Office because they're trying to look like they're doing something. I hope they are able to protect these migrants who cross the border. Britain is the 19th in the list of migrant acceptors in Europe, quite low on the list, actually. And flying these people to Rwanda will cost us £600,000 per person. So it might be more prudent financially to actually put them in a hotel where they're safe and can be protected while they're in process. They are not illegal once they're on the shore. They are migrants in process. I'd like to make that clear, too. I wish the Home Office would also, put a line under that so people remember that as well.
But there are two categories of people we are talking about, those who will eventually go on to have their asylum claim found successful and those who won't.
Of course.
And
70% will be successful in this country.
But to even come up with the percentages doesn't mean it's not right to say those who shouldn't be here, we need a system that means that they don't end up being.
That's of course, but most people coming in are, as it turns out, not Albanian. Those numbers have gone up. But the government's seen those numbers go up for the last 5 years. They should have prepared and planned something instead of panicking and then grasping at straws like they are now. These hotels are costing British taxpayers a fortune to keep these people in hotels. Why they don't have centers built for them that are effective, I don't know. It seems like one center they do have is being criticized in the press, and they're talking about pulling all the migrants out of that place, which makes no sense because it houses 1,400 people. Most people coming in are from countries like Iraq and Eritrea, where they're in desperate, dire need. And people keep saying that Albania isn't a country where people are unsafe. But obviously, there are problems there and people coming here for that reason.
And Thea, what's your take on this front page?
I think we've got to be really careful not to demonise people who are trying to better themselves. And there's obviously a reason they haven't elected to leave their home, their families, and probably everything that they've ever known and earned to come here. And I think we've got to be really careful not to seem like we're essentially demonising them.
Can you pass judgment on the mode that someone tries to better themselves, whether you officially apply to move to a place or you try and sail in some sort of a boat across a channel? There's a difference. There's a material difference.
There's a huge amount of difference. I just have a huge amount of empathy for anyone that's in such a desperate place that they feel the need to put their lives at risk sometimes to cross a channel, that of their family and themselves, and sometimes even separating families to get here. I mean, you have to be in a pretty difficult situation in order to do that. I don't think people are sat at home comfortably in Albania or Eritrea saying, do you know what, I'd really like a jolly nice long weekend.
Yeah.
In England.
Well, I think that the UK should follow the Geneva Convention law and not turn their back on it, which is what they're threatening to do. I mean, that convention law, that it's there in place for a reason, and they should tread lightly. I mean, it can get quite ugly, actually.
And some people say, you know, these people are clearly leaving France, which is not a war-torn country, but, I mean, France, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
They don't have a comedy scene.
No.
And some of the attitude.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Just wait, they use butter to cook it. It's not healthy.
So I'm glad we resolved that one. And what are the Observer going with here?
So, the Observer have said that on Thursday, the 30 or 60 billion pound fiscal hole, we're going to hear about the budget. So will the Trussonomics be addressed or not? So her disastrous mini budget cost the country a staggering 30 billion, doubling the sum that the Treasury says will have to be raised by Jeremy Hunt this week in a huge programme of tax rises and spending cuts. The think tank says the £30 billion figure would have been far higher without the U-turns already taken by Hunt on the trust plans. And the rest of the fiscal hole can be accounted for by unexpectedly bad economic conditions, which have meant lower growth and lower tax receipts to the Treasury. Essentially, we're buggered.
Yeah.
I'm worried because Hunt says he wants to raise the pensions to inflation. Inflation's at 11%. We can't afford it. We can't afford it.
But I mean, they're triple locked anyway, so...
but triple lock has to go. Yes. Those old people have to eat less. Or something.
As you get older, your appetite is supposed to wane. Where I'm not seeing the evidence of this.
You're supposed to slim down when you get older. Your bones shrink. So let's, cut back on the bread.
Your height shrinks as well.
Well, everything. Yeah, your income should shrink
your nose and your ears continue growing.
Well, that's where you need the calories, isn't it, for all the cartilage?
I guess
so,
so, yeah.
That makes an awful lot of sense.
I think we should put that to them.
Good luck with that. I mean, it talks about trustonomics or whatever the phrase is. Was it the economics that were the problem, or was it the bullish attitude of I'm so right, you don't even know how right I am? There was one of the speeches that Truss gave, and there was only 3, so it's not like there's loads to try and remember. But her apology when there were U-turns was effectively along the lines of, I'm sorry, you don't realise how right my plans are, which is one of the worst kind of apologies.
And she didn't let anyone outside of her bubble see the figures and see the actual plan to prove it. People were kind of at a loss about how it was going to work, and it didn't seem like it would work. And once the word got out that it would not maybe work, people really panicked. And I think that she was not, like you said, very reassuring. She didn't seem capable of looking at people and speaking to them as though she were actually in the room. She seemed ethereal, and I think that freaked people out a little bit.
I think ethereal is quite a... It makes it sound slightly more gentle and approachable than perhaps she was. I wonder, and I'm not saying either way, but I'm starting to think that perhaps she sort of looked at the way Thatcher ruled with an iron fist and said, do you know what, in order for me to command as a female Prime Minister, I'm going to have the absolute same approach, and I'm not going to explain myself, it's my way or the highway, and the harder the medicine is to take, all that sort of stuff. So, I don't know, I just know that she was beaten by lettuce.
I'm worried that we're going to go back to heavy-duty tax cuts and then austerity, and then the lawn at the park in front of our house won't get mowed once a week, and that really annoys me.
That's what bothers you.
Well, you know...
And this all could have been avoided if we saw some working out. I mean, on the TV show Countdown, if you get the same solution as someone else, you still have to show your workings.
Yeah,
and yet, for some reason, she thought,
I want to see the scribblings, that's all.
Yeah.
What is it about her? Why? 12 years in the cabinet, she can't get it together. It's weird, isn't it?
And also on the front page, there's a story which is bad news for us working-class types.
Well, it is unfortunately bad news. So there is a widening pay gap between the classes, and the £10,000 difference between being middle class and working class here, apparently. And this specifically affects, unfortunately, women and ethnic minorities who face a double disadvantage, as if we needed anything else to rail against There's now a £10,000 wage gap. But Alan Milburn, the former health secretary and now chair of the SMF, he called on ministers to legally require companies to do more to measure and monitor and report that pay gap. You see companies like PwC, KPMG and Clifford Chance wailing in and saying those on the receiving end of the class pay gap are being hit by a double whammy as the cost of living crisis also eats into their incomes.
I just wonder, though, when you're dealing with, like, KPMG and these kind of companies, how many...
It's a little bit ironic, isn't it?
How many working-class people are actually top-flight accountants?
Yeah.
I don't know if they're...
They're charging more than £10,000 to commission that piece of work.
I think Charles is going to help, because we got a story come out, I think, about Charles giving money to his poor employees to clean his toilets and stuff. So I think he's going to help a little bit with this. He's going to throw some money down the toilet for them.
I'll see what I can do.
Catch this.
I realise I introed this by saying us working class types. I'm looking round. It's just me, isn't it? Because you have the accent of someone who's
I don't know what you're suggesting.
Single mother. I mean, Ivy League, but you know, she worked hard to get me there.
Yeah.
And
but you're from a nation that doesn't have the class structure.
We don't have
the class.
No, we run the world.
I'm half and half. I'm half American, half British. So I'm completely.
Working well.
You guys can't.
Well, Scott, we'll move on to the Sunday Times, and what's the front page looking like there?
The Sunday Times. I'll find it. Give me a minute. Jeez, I'm feeling pressure. All right. There's glee in Kherson. I always mispronounce that because when I hear them pronounce it on TV, it's not the way I pronounce it.
I believe Kherson.
Yeah, okay, well, there you go. Thank you for that. So in Kherson, there's glee because the Russians have pulled out, crossed the river, and then bombed every bridge and burned every bridge on their way out. Sounds like my career. And they and they're on the other side, and they're within rifling distance, but they said that it was a planned retreat, but then I saw the film footage on the news today, and it looked like a mess. They left behind.
Sort of running.
Well, yeah, and they were over some weird little part of the bridge they left behind, and then they left loads of missiles instead. They look like missiles. I don't know. I'm not a soldier, but they left lots of stuff you can use to kill people behind. And cute outfits and stuff, and all sorts of things. I mean, it looked like they grabbed their Speedo and their tube of chapstick and ran, which would be my plan, too. And now the Khersonians are back in their city of 280,000 people, capital city, and not a strategic city necessarily, although we hear a lot about it. It was kind of one of Zelensky's favorite places, apparently, and a symbolic town, because the first capital city that the troops from Russia took. They left because they went up to Donbass. Am I pronouncing that right? Donbass?
You're in there.
Yeah. They went up there because they're having a struggle up there. It's a much more strategic area that Russia really wants to control. So they took whatever, I think it was around 20 or 30,000 troops out of Kherson, who were just kind of sitting there because they'd won, as far as they thought, and moved them. I guess they just decided they didn't need it anymore. Also, Putin's running out of troops. As we know, he's lost 100,000 troops. He's lost a lot of officers. And now troops are showing up untrained on the front lines with 1950s guns and no ammo in them, if they can get a gun. Some of these troops, quote unquote, have no idea how to defend themselves. So I think they pulled some of those professionals in Kherson to train some of the guys up in the Donbass as well. It's not going well with the Russians. And we're looking at this thinking the battle's over, but clearly it's not. They've got a lot of very dark days ahead of them.
True, but it is also, if you compare this to what we were saying months ago when this all started, people were saying, oh, give Russia a couple of weeks, they will entirely take over.
All
it
we are saying
that way,
is give Russia a chance.
Don't give Russia a chance. I think home advantage was completely underestimated here, and also the ability of Zelensky to rally his country. And, had Klitschko, I think, as his boxer, and he went back to fight on the front line. And it's remarkable how much of a stand that they've put together, and it's really inspiring. And, from all around the world, there's obviously been money pouring in, and most mechanisms of some form of website or charity, there's a mechanism to donate to the war in Ukraine. And I think it's a really lovely sign to see the world standing behind a country which has been so violently invaded, and the people of Ukraine know that they have our support, and the Eurovision
You're wearing
crown.
half the flag.
Well, yeah, I am. What do you call me? There's a lot of, not a lot of warm feeling, though, in Ukraine toward Europe, to be honest with you right now. Not a lot.
We let them win the competition, though.
Yeah, sure, we let them. Because
I'm kidding.
No, it's just that, we left Ukraine, without defense. We told them to remove all their nuclear capabilities, which is
promised to take care of it.
Yeah.
And then we did.
Yeah.
Well, let's try and line things with a look at Matt Hancock, and he features on a few front pages. Let's start with the Sunday Mirror, Thea.
So this is something which we should only really ever see once in a lifetime. Matt Hancock, in glasses, hasn't got a prayer, and his experience on The Jungle and the front page of the Daily Star, Matt Hancock, his judgment, The Fool, it's not looking good. And
I think he's getting a lot of airtime, and it really depresses me, actually. I mean, I think that the show wanted what they're getting, which is him on the front page. That's why they brought him in.
What?
And they knew he'd be you know, some of the other guests on the show would argue with him about his politics, which is happening currently. And they knew that he'd be vilified and ridiculed. And hopefully, I think they're hoping he gets removed.
Well, it's good for viewing figures, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you've got a politician who's totally out of favour, and rightly so. Having, you know, did you see yesterday was his rebutting against the fact he didn't break the law, he just broke the guidelines, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, defending what he did in the first place at all is just beyond the pale.
Hands over the pandemic too.
He does completely.
And it's less to do with snogging in the office. I care very little about that. I care an awful lot more about sending people with COVID to care homes.
Exactly.
Hugely different.
You know, that's really why he was removed. And also, I hate the idea of giving him all this airtime, because this is exactly what he wants. He's a bit of a sociopath, obviously, and he wants to be noticed and looked at and talked about. He's loving this. He's really enjoying it.
It's really interesting you say that, because I've started to think that every out-of-favour politician now needs to go and eat a cow's anus or a camel penis to bring themselves...
It might be how they got the job, actually, if you think about it.
I was thinking about that.
As they say, you are what you eat. Well, that's the front pages. Coming up after the break, we go behind the headlines. We've got Twitter advertising woes, why Harry and Meghan's company is worth millions of pounds, and King Charles doing his employees a solid. We'll see you there.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you know, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky. That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg. And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for The Briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, The Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Stephen Allen with Thea Carroll and Scott Capurro. Let's take a deeper dive into Sunday's papers now. And Sunday's Telegraph, Thea. Elon Musk is working hard to try and stop being the world's richest man, it seems.
He's working overtime. And so advertising giant Twitter, Omnicom. I'm going to try and not call this a variation of COVID.
Yes, it's it's not even our fault. We're so used to listing variants.
Exactly. Omnicom, which is a global media agency that represents about 5,000 clients, has warned of essentially misrepresentation on Twitter. So for $8, anyone can become verified on Twitter, and it has led to a huge, chaotic week for Trump. Wow, Musk. The two are not intertwined publicly. And there's a huge U-turn on the rollout of subscriptions. So quite rightly, they're recommending to all their clients that they shouldn't be investing at the moment into Twitter advertising. But I think it's super interesting because whatever you want to say about Elon Musk, he is a genius. And so at the very, very bottom of this story, there is a point that he's saying we're deriving over 90% of our revenue from advertisers, and that's not a stable business model, in which it's right, because it's not a defensible position. They need to be thinking about other revenue streams and how to monetize other parts of the platform. So I don't know if this is Musk's grand plan, because he is a master of game theory. He's 10 steps ahead, and he can move markets and create, all sorts of movements in stocks, prices, and I'm not saying that he would do that, but I think he's 10 steps ahead. I don't think this is an accident.
You think he wants the advertisers to leave anyway? He just wants them to
Well, if he's crashing the value of the advertising and he's depleting the value of the stock of Twitter, it's a lot, and he's completely democratizing his workers' market, essentially. And I'm personally affected by this because a friend of mine used to work at Twitter and she was fabulous at her job. But the jobs market is so incredibly competitive that he's clearing house, which is what, an aggressive M&A situation, the majority of the management board is cleared and the incoming person does that.
A lot of them have quit, though. And it's because he asked them to come in 40 hours a week, so they quit because they want to be at home, eating Mars bars and playing with their kids. I mean, I guess the reason is because the environment in the office, particularly in home office in San Francisco, is not cozy. As you say, it's incredibly competitive, very backstabby. And it would be nice if he maybe altered the environment a little bit, but he's making it seems even more so. But then that goes along with what Tesla employees have said about the environment he's created in California and elsewhere. Not a happy place to work. And I think he likes to see people on edge. He likes to see investors on edge, too, and that's what he's creating.
There's also, though, with what he's done with the blue tick thing, the idea that for $8 you can get it. One of the few values of Twitter was that it was a way of getting information quickly from reliable sources, and then all the newspapers write about them. But the problem is now there's no such thing as a reliable source on Twitter, because for $8, and I mean, this is in the story. There are things about some of the fake ones.
It's amazing. So
he's U-turned on it, though. He's not doing the $8 charge now. He was going to introduce it soon, but he announced today he's not going to do it for now.
Well, I think it's been paused, hasn't it? The ability
paused.
to get it. But the problem is there are already some accounts that have the blue tick now.
So you've got Pepsi coming out and saying Coke is better.
We all knew it.
They're not lying.
Just saying what we knew.
Exactly. I was really interested in the Eli Lilly and Company when they announced that insulin was now free. We say crashing the stock, it actually only dropped off about 2%, but billions was wiped off the valuation. And I think it gave people, quite rightly, a question of going, well, actually, why isn't insulin free? No one chooses to be diabetic. And it was gifted, its technology, in the first instance, and now it's making these pharma companies billions and billions of dollars.
But as we saw on the screen, there wasn't even a profile picture on that account. They verified it as an actual company without there being a picture on it.
No, really, it's us.
And the names, the go-to names, they are like one letters out of place. So George Bush's is George W. Bush's, and then he says, "I miss killing Iraqis." That was his quote for the day. Which is, it's funny. I mean, You know, the problem is that Musk is angry because he's being out-trolled by his own clients. Yeah. By people that he'd like to be. He wants it to be an open-air platform, but now he's finding out how difficult that can be.
Wasn't that long ago that the actual George W. Bush, doing a speech about Ukraine, accidentally, effectively trolled himself? Yeah. Let's move on now to Sunday's Telegraph, Scott, and Donald Trump. Will he be running? And we obviously don't mean in the real sense.
Trump is fired up. He wants it, and he's going to announce his candidacy soon. Super awkward for the Republicans because they're not going to announce other candidates. We know who some of them are. You know, Trump's ex-vice president is going to run, and Ron DeSantis from Florida is probably going to run. But they won't be announcing the candidacy until next summer. So Trump's going to be the only candidate for like 8 months, which is great for him. All that publicity, and I miss the jokes. I might vote for. I do. I'm going to vote for him because I'm a Nancy Pelosi fan, but I want to be on the winning team for a change. So I think he's going to embarrass a lot of people in his party, which he's want to do. I think he wants to clear house, too. And he wants to see actually how many people... When he's been the only candidate for 7 months or 8 months, he wants to see exactly who's going to try to run against him. And he's going to whittle those numbers down. He wants it to be just him and the governor of Florida because he despises him so much right now because he's a third of his age and much more popular than Floridians. The irony is Trump lives in Florida and the governor can make his life a nightmare. It's going to be
with
great.
Parking fines, wouldn't it?
All that, yeah.
So
I can't
awkward.
wait. I just can't wait.
Who do we think the running mate's going to be? Who do we think Trump's going to choose?
Oh, I mean, yeah, it could be any particular sideshow.
Yeah.
That's what it's all going to be about. The interesting thing about the what's that, sorry?
Kanye's free.
Oh, that would be excellent.
The thing is, I'm thinking about that and I'm going, how are they going to fit Make White Lives Great Again on a baseball cap?
Yeah, it's either a really tall hat or small font. Could be either. The idea of putting Donald Trump up against Ron DeSantis is really interesting, though, because the one thing DeSantis has actually now done is got more votes in an election, because Donald Trump can't claim that. The Electoral College system gave him the first one and then lost the second one, depending on which websites you read. But, you know, if you're a Republican who can actually get more votes, you can actually beat a Democrat in the polls, that'd be interesting.
Republicans were excited by DeSantis also because he did so well amongst minority voters in his home state. I've worked in Florida, though, and people that live in Florida don't want anyone else coming in. Anyone else.
I recognised you from Disneyland.
Disney? Yeah, Disney.
That's the thing that upsets you, is it?
Really threw me off. I did audition for Disneyland like 3 different times. I used to be a singer-dancer. But anyway, that's a lifetime ago. But I wanted to live in Florida because the weather's nice. But when I went there, I realized that Florida, we talked about this disparity of wealth. Florida's either very, very wealthy people or people live in cinder block houses, killing their dogs because they think their dogs are gay. So that's what you're dealing with in Florida. And DeSantis did well amongst all those people. And that's a real cross-section of the U.S. So the Republicans feel like, well, if he can get them to Florida and he can get that same cross-section, Latino voters, African-American voters, Cuban voters, which are a big voting bloc, obviously, in Florida, but that whole part of the country, if he can get them, he can win the next election, they think.
Bad news for gay dogs across America. Well, Mail on Sunday, Thea, and how much would you spend to have some time with Harry and Meghan? And just to clarify, that is paying them, not them paying you.
Apparently rich Americans are spending up to $1 million to rub shoulders with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. And it's at a gala in New York, so they're not just... It's not at their home in California. But there is a reason behind this. So the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are going to receive an award at the Ripple of Hope Gala in New York. And previous winners of this award are, think people like Joe Biden and Bill Clinton and Al Gore, Barack Obama. And the top dollar is being paid for 4 seats at the top table, $1 million, which actually feels like the recession's really kicking in. I don't know, but then there's also a package for $500,000. And I want to know, if you're rubbing shoulders for $1 million,
Rub knees?
I was about to say I want a bit more than my shoulders rubbed for $1 million.
I would ask to explain further, but we better not, because Volcom.
I wonder what's going to go wrong at that event, because Meghan's got to have something to complain about, so something's got to go wrong. I'm sure it's going to be too cold, or there's too much oil in the food.
She's been brought up in the press this week because one of her thank you letters still has the crown on her stationery, and she wrote a thank you letter, which was handwritten, or a thank you postcard, I should say, and people were mocking her because she's still using the insignatory of being within the royal household, and it's creating a bit of tension as to whether she should be... categorically, she shouldn't. She left royal life over 3 years ago.
But isn't that why it's worth $1 million? Because Americans, no offence to your good people, and half of your good people, but think royals cool and want to spend money to be royals. It wouldn't matter which royals were at this event. They'd spend money just so they'd say they got to meet one.
Yeah, it's kind of like having dinner with Jennifer Aniston. To Americans, they're just movie stars, really, and they just want to hang out with them and then have a photo taken and then say, look how much money I have. I spent at that thing, and it brought down my tax burden this year, and I got to hug that skinny woman who complains all the time. So,
how much does it cost to have lunch with you, Scott?
The cost of lunch. If you can afford my tuna steak.
Will work for food.
I had lunch at Suffrages the other day, and it's so glam. And the bill came, and I was eating with a Swede who I thought would pay for it because they're so rich. And even he balked. I had to pay for that. I'm telling you, running the world when you're an American, it's a lot of work. It is a lot. It's a lot of heavy lifting. It really is.
To Sunday's Metro now, and King Charles is handing out money, not in a Prince Andrew way, though, Scott.
Well, you know, he feels bad because some of his people, get this, they make less, some of them make less than £45,000 a year. And he doesn't even know what that's like. So he's going to throw some money at them. And if they happen to be working in the royal staff and they literally are toilet cleaners who make 17 grand a year to clean his livery, or gardeners who make 16.5 and get lodgings and meals are provided. If they make these sorts of money, he's going to throw £600 at them as a little Christmas bonus. If they make below 30,000, they get 600. They make below 40,000, they get 400. If they make between 40 and 45,000, they get 350 pounds. It's going to cost the king a total of $23.7 million to pay 490 staff members who aren't paid well enough for what they do.
Yeah. Good story or bad story? What's your take on this?
My take on it was worth, His Royal Highness is worth over £600 million, and this equates to 0.001% of his net worth, or the equivalent of about 120 boxes of Dutchy eggs. So I like the idea that he's essentially gifting... There's an incoming recession, there's a cost of living crisis, your energy bills are skyrocketing, you're probably not being paid enough or valued. But it'll all be better because here's 120 boxes of Dutchy eggs.
But what's the wicked one she's married
stuff.
to? What is she giving in? Because she makes a lot of money too. What's her salary? She draws it in, doesn't she?
I don't know.
Is she going to cost? What about the rest of them? All of them should be giving money. Why are we paying them? They should be paying us for being nice.
But, I mean, there's a certain logic to paying money for heating for those people who clean your toilet, because you don't want them to have cold hands, at the very least.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
got to sit on there and
It's a bit of preservation. They want them to turn up, not get flu or another form of COVID. And, you know, I think it's self-fulfilling.
I think Charles is filled with dust. They just push him on a balcony every few weeks and say, OK, it's a holiday talk. Just go.
I love the idea that Buckingham Palace is just a scene from Weekend at Bernie's.
And on
apparently it's falling apart.
Trying to move on because Scott's got to get us cancelled. That's it for part 2. Coming up, we've got a ban on brothels, inflatable penises and failed marriages. And that's just...
that makes all so much sense.
We'll see you in 3.
That's just my last...
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week. I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland, Wales,
And Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio,
And online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
News channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm still Stephen Allen, she's still Thea Carroll, and we're all hoping he's still Scott Capurro. I say that, but we might be slightly worried.
Who are you? Who am I? Who are you?
To The Observer, Scott, and a multi-storey erotic centre. That's wrong on many levels.
Well, we're so excited about this. In Amsterdam, the red light district is just, it's overrun by tourists dressed up in silly outfits, and some of the people who work there feel like they're being abused, so they want to move. And obviously that piece of property is very, very expensive. So they want to take that red light district and move it to a mall with shops and restaurants and stuff, and they want to turn prostitution into something a bit more fluffy. The problem is the workers themselves don't want to move. They know that the government's saying it's for their safety, but the plans that have been put forward only have 100 windows. And the girls are used to 250 windows, and they want the work. And they don't want to be moved to an area where people aren't going to go, that closes at 6 o'clock and there's nothing to do around there. Where they are, it thrives because, it really kicks off at midnight. They also think locals are worried that live in Amsterdam, that it'll wreck the local economy because it's a great tourist attraction right now. And then if businesses that fly conventions in Amsterdam think, well, if that's not there anymore, we could go to Berlin or we could go to Barcelona. Why would we go to Amsterdam now if that's gone? So there's all sorts of reasons to not do it. The reason to do it, the government is saying, is because that environment, again, is not safe for the people employed there, and they're trying to create a safe environment for their own citizens.
Yeah. Will the windmills be enough to draw you if you don't get to see
what's in my mind?
I quite like the idea of I'm not entirely sure I agree with the how many, firstly, unsafe situations have come about. I can't say I know a huge amount about the safety of working women in Amsterdam, but I already resent the lack of windows for them to display their services in. But I also quite like the idea of a one-stop shop for sex. I think that's quite fun. So imagine being the security guard at that mall That's quite fun. But I also...
Discount.
Yeah, exactly. And you can go check your coupon and cash your cards. I quite like...
validate parking.
Yeah, exactly.
That's an awkward conversation.
I used to date a prostitute, actually. He was not just a prostitute, he was also a lap dancer, and he dealt crystal. But anyway, it's a long time ago, and multi-talented, and talk about multi-story. But anyway, every time we were in bed together, all I could think about was all the money I was saving. But it was too difficult too, because it felt as though what he was doing at work, and even though he was protected at work, and he worked in a place like this, like in a mall in San Francisco, where there were a bunch of different places to do what he did, and he had a boss overseeing, and the police knew. It was still not a safe life, and he was not living a healthy, happy lifestyle.
So you gave him refuge?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm like a model UN. They're all welcome inside. But I felt like it wasn't, when I read these stories about these women who are saying, it's my job. Yeah, it's all great. But there's a lot of drug and human trafficking going on in that business. And I think that's what the government's trying. They want to have it in a place where they can actually really keep an eye on it.
Yeah. Keep an eye on it and maybe tax it.
And where it's more like a day job. Where it ends at 6 o'clock and everyone goes home.
Okay.
And then it's less dangerous, probably.
I mean, is that a bit awkward?
Well,
going to pay for those services at 5:55 and being like, that's quite a nighttime activity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sort of clashes with the workday.
You only get 5 minutes if you go in at 5:50. Let's not even work out whether that's a viable option.
Talk about a horn blowing.
Mail on Sunday now, Thea, and you can't take your sex doll to Malaga, so she's going to give me the silent treatment when I get back.
So it's a troubling, for the local blow-up suppliers, it's a troubling development as the authorities are looking to crack down on essentially tourists bringing in blow-up sex paraphernalia.
Sex paraphernalia?
Sex paraphernalia. And offenders could be fined up to £650 if they're found with it, or the equivalent of 120 Dutchy boxes of eggs. The interesting thing is this feels like it's flying in the face of the gift that is British tourism for the local GDP. I can't say that it is a gift to actually have us there and behaving in the way that we do, but it does contribute. I think there's some absolutely beguiling statistics.
7.4 billion last summer, mostly British money.
Mostly British money. That's a lot of blow-up paraphernalia.
Yeah. Why are they taking the air out of all the fun? I don't get it, Come on.
Take all the blow-up inflatables off the strip and you're just going to be left with actual penises.
Doll. It's just a doll. They make them really nice now, too. And the best thing is they're quiet.
It's unfortunate, though. My boyfriend's at home, but he's got a puncture. He wanted to come tonight.
Wait, a slow puncture one where there's just like a around the room.
It was quick relief.
Well, then it's very lifelike.
Next.
Moving on to the Sunday Times now, and teenagers are spending a lot of time in a room on their own. What could they possibly be doing,
I know. And who knew, right? Apparently there's another study. Are we paying for this? Another study done by a group called Charity Onside. Apparently 51% of those between 11 and 18 spend time alone in their bedroom. That was the outcome of the study. They're worried. 93% of kids between 12 and 15 now have smartphones, and they're worried that kids are in the room and they're not developing social skills, and they're not learning how to talk to one another, and they're not spending time with their family. And this one woman is interviewed, Hannah Roper, she's 41, interviewed in this study, and she says, I'm really depressed because I used to sit on the sofa with my son, and we watch TV and we chat, and he'd be on his phone, but we were engaged, and now he won't let anyone in his space. He's trying to control his space, his room space. But again, her son is 13, and that's what kids kind of do. I don't know.
I mean, at 13, it's all about crusty socks and privacy time, right?
So and how weird your parents are and how creepy your mom is and all that stuff,
yeah,
right? It
and
kind of
if
is.
you think about the amount of time you used to spend, or I'm assuming you used to spend in your bedroom with readers' wives or readers' husbands.
How old do you think I am?
Then think about the amount of content that they have to cover nowadays. I mean, no wonder they're spending longer in their bedroom. There's just so much to get through.
No, it's not. I don't think you have to finish the internet, do you? You'll be there. No wonder they never leave their room.
I think they're trying to break it in there. They're trying to break their computer screen. I just think, the pandemic was awful, and I think that for kids especially, and I think that parents kind of have panicked about it, and they're trying to make up for all that time lost. When it's just with kids especially, I think bring the hyperbole down a little bit. Just let them kind of get through what they're doing,
Yeah. I mean, if I had the internet, I was quiet as a teenager. If I had the internet, I would have been very quiet, but perfectly happy.
Yeah.
So you can still you develop social skills at school. I think every generation eventually hits an age where they go, oh, teenagers these days are terrible. And that has always been the dynamic. And at some stage, those teenagers will grow up, and whatever the teenagers after that do, they'll think it's terrible too. It's just all that story, isn't it? To The Independent next. And marriage is predicted to suffer slow decline. And I mean the concept of marriage, not just my one. Thea.
Yeah. I can relate. So marriages, just 1 in 400 couples are going to get married this year. It's a staggering fact. And there was a thought that there would be a delayed wave of people getting married because obviously they were put off by COVID and not being able to actually book churches and have celebrations. But this is actually showing that marriage rates are predicted to drop by up to 70% by 2062. And I think it's absolutely fascinating. There's this sort of exponential decay in the next 40 years with marriage rates dropping off to 5.2 per 1,000 couples by 2062.
I wish I was a teenager, actually, now that I'm married, because I don't have a moment to myself, actually. I will never be alone again. My husband's, how you doing? How you doing? I'm fine. Do you ask me one more time? It's, you know, marriage is great, but I understand why people don't want to get married.
So convincing.
The thing is, what's weird to me is that all the superfluous things around marriage, like the church and the flowers, all of it, it's a civil partnership, really. It's really a financial and civil decision.
I don't know about you. I got married for the flowers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I don't know what I've married and getting divorced. Obviously, I'm a statistic. But the incentive's now been removed, I think, because the laws changed in divorce on April 6th of this year.
Yeah.
So it's no-fault divorce. It's very easy. You just sort of apply online, a bit like renewing your sort of V5C, and then you say, kind of want to get divorced. And I don't know where the incentive is with marriage.
Think, in a way,
There's no acrimony anymore.
I think it makes people, incentivizes people to get married maybe more frequently because now they know it's easy to get out of.
Exactly.
So maybe the marriage you're saying, I mean, in
we
a
need
way,
a drive-through. That's what we need here.
Yes, and I think what we also need too is just the idea that it's not a failure if it doesn't work out. That relationships change all the time. I think during the pandemic, we saw a lot of friendships, end or create themselves. I think marriage is the same. It's okay if it ends. It's all right. Don't worry. You're okay.
And also, this should cheer you up.
That's exactly what my therapist briefed you to say that, didn't she?
Oh, right.
It's not a failure.
And see if this makes you feel better about the divorce. It's something like one in two marriages now end in divorce.
Yeah.
But it's better than the other that end in death. So
It's so bizarre, though. I mean, we're so strange. We throw a party for something that's got a 1 in 2 chance. I mean, humans are bizarre. It's like the same as a gender reveal party. It's like absolutely bonkers. I mean, why would we celebrate something such low odds?
Daily Star, Sunday, and are lotteries racist?
Well,
they have balls of so many different colours.
Thanks for noticing. Yes, they are racist because apparently people in poorer neighborhoods, made up in the U.S. at least, where the study is from, mostly brown and black people, are more likely to buy scratch tickets and lottery tickets, but they lose a lot of money on scratch tickets, and all that money invested into the ticket buying goes toward the winner, who tends to be someone from a wealthier neighborhood. And then that money doesn't get circulated back down into the community that's created it. So they're seeing a disparity of wealth within the lottery system. It all sounds like a lot of hair pulling by middle-class people.
I just, sorry, you were going to say.
I was going to say, you can have the same story without mentioning race and just look at class if you do the UK version. But we knew this when the lottery was launched.
Yes.
It takes money away from poor people who buy lottery tickets.
Like gambling.
Yeah, we spend so long arguing against the increase of the wealth gap, and yet when a lottery comes along, we're like, oh, what one person could be a billionaire by taking bits from loads of people. That's great.
In a way, it's equal because the odds are terrible for everybody. And a grandfather won. He won $2 billion in California. Not my grandfather, obviously, or else I wouldn't be here right now. My father doesn't spend a penny on his kids, and he's unvaccinated. He drinks a liter of brandy every 3 days and smokes 2 packs a day. He's 87, and he's fine. So
you've not won the lottery then?
No, I haven't won the lottery, but he might win the pillow lottery that I'm going to hold over his face at Christmas. But anyway, I mean, a grandfather won, some guy.
Well, the IRS won.
Yeah.
I mean, the tax receipt for that was something.
Yeah.
But I mean, I want to stand up for the people who are doing fruit slots. No one's talking on their behalf.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Who's talking up for those people?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's the disparity of reassessment of wealth?
My upbringing, 2-piece slot machines.
Well, my grandmother in America, Florida, she'd just sit with her quarters and she would just play.
Never made me rich, though.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Let's move on to the mail on Sunday, Thea. And are you psychic? I'm going to guess no, you're not, because I've got the gift.
Well, this is really interesting because I can attest to the fact that most women have a... Oh, here we go. Here we go. OK, so, look, it's science. Durham University has said that women are psychic now. And I don't think it's psychic now. I just think that we have an intuition. Dr. Richard Sugg, who lectures at Durham University, is an expert, and they're currently researching a new book, but they're saying that women may be more psychic than men and often have more feelings, I don't like the fact it's in inverted commas, about places and far sooner than the opposite sex. And I can really attest to this. It's a bit like a quad muscle. If you exercise it enough, you lean in, you listen, that little voice is telling you that man is a psychopath or is not. And you listen to it.
But intuition
and I'm still alive.
is one thing. But to then claim that your intuition makes you psychic is misunderstanding the words.
It is a misunderstanding the word, but we like to broad brush this and just claim
that little voice could be a psychosis? Couldn't it be an illness, actually? Because people that hear voices are usually considered psychotic. So couldn't it be that women are actually more likely to be psychotic?
Well, yeah, it's funny.
This explains a lot of domestic violence situations. Perhaps.
That's how I knew I had anxiety, actually, because when I took my bra off, my chest didn't get any looser, and there's a little voice inside my head that was like, it's the shoes, and I took those off. And I'd take a stripping off. I'm standing naked, sweating, standing in the middle of the street, and I realised that that is not anxiety, that's schizophrenia.
I feel like we've changed.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
Or a different story.
I don't know how heterosexual men do it. I seriously don't know.
And that's because you've got the gift, is it?
That is. Actually, Dr. Richard Sugg has said that it is possible, therefore we have the gift. It's a sign of untapped psychic talent, essentially.
Yeah. I would have
we
gone
all
with the
have
word
it. You
tapped
should be
more than untapped, but there we go. Interesting stuff. Well, I mean, I'm sure you've got your own thoughts on that one. Thank you very much. That's all we've got time for. Thank you to my guests, Thea Carroll and Scott Capurro. Tomorrow night, there will be Mark Dolan, who will be back in this chair, being joined by Kerry Marks and Josh Howie. We will see you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio.
And online.
We're proud to be the People's Channel, Britain's
News channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news